Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And I do this show each week because I really want to bring value to your career to help you find that next best place, and just to share with you all the wonderful people that I get to meet, almost on a daily basis. And today is no different. So today I'd like to welcome Mark Silverman, executive coach and speaker. Mark is on a mission to take the lessons learned along the way, paired with his business acumen, to help others define and achieve their own successes. He brings his leadership experience together with his coach and facilitation training to his clients, helping them achieve sustainable success in all areas of their business and lives. And I am so excited. Thank you for joining us today, Mark.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. It sounds so professional.
So many people, so many times I'll introduce the guest because, I don't know about you, but when you're speaking, I've always been told that you need to get somebody else to write your introduction because you'll never do yourself justice, right?
Because if you ask me, I just talk to people and their lives and businesses change. But then we have to put it in like professional speak, so it sounds like something higher level is actually happening, but it's just conversations.
It is conversations, but you just said something very important. It's changing the way people do business. It's changing their business. And that's incredible because you have to be open to receiving that conversation and hearing that conversation and then internalizing that conversation, right? Because if we don't internalize it, we can't do anything with it.
Right. And pressure's never been higher. The pace of change has never been faster. So the ability to be flexible, the ability to learn, the ability to listen and be open is a critical skill in order to make it in the environment that, people are trying to get jobs in.
And I think also people are so quick to prove that they're right instead of considering there may be other options, especially when it comes to a job search.
Definitely.
So interesting. Okay, so I love to start off these conversations with how we got connected. So pop quiz time. How did we get connected?
I don't remember. It was definitely a referral.
It was
because everybody I meet is through someone wonderful who introduced me to someone else wonderful, and I can't remember.
Oh, okay. You're gonna remember as soon as I tell you. Todd Armstrong.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That was so silly of me. Yes, and glowing. And you and I had an incredible conversation.
Incredible.
Like for me, I think we were friends. We've been friends without Todd forever because you and I had a conversation before this, and it was like we were old friends and couldn't wait to get on the podcast to talk.
I know, and I love it when those conversations, like you get on the phone, and we were just like deep diving in the first 5 minutes. It was just like, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm like, there's no way we're going to get all that on the podcast, but we're going to try. So it was amazing. But before we get started, I do want to say thank you because you gifted me with 2 of your books, which I am so excited. I gifted one to another person that's pretty important to me. But you also gifted me with a book from your friend, and I'm not remembering her name right now. But
Helen Appleby.
Yes.
The Unwritten Rules of Women's Leadership.
Yes, that was so unexpected and so sweet of you.
I just seemed right up your alley because that's what you do. You're a powerful woman leader, and I thought it would be kindred spirit time.
Well, I just really appreciate that, and I love people that are. So we had a speaker at Success North Dallas, this premier relationship organization that I run, the other day, and this is the first time I'd seen this. He gave away about 15 books while he was giving his keynote, all by other authors. Mm-hmm. And he would tell a story, he'd give away a book. He'd tell a story, he'd give away a book. And I thought, what an incredible impact he is having this morning. Isn't that amazing?
I keep cases of books that I like to give away that have changed my life.
What is your favorite one?
Right now, I give away Michael Bungay Stanier's The Coaching Habit.
Oh,
And his new book, just for new leaders, it is the best book. It's the first step in how to become a good leader from an individual contributor. And his new book that just came out yesterday, or pretty. I think it was yesterday. How to get along with almost anyone at work. I got to read it before it came out. Really good book. So I give Michael Bungay Stanier books away, give spiritual books away, all kinds of leadership books.
okay. I'm going to have to read that one because there's always someone, when you're talking to people, someone at the office that they can't get along with, right? So right. I am very curious to hear what he has to say about that. But we're going to talk about you today. We're going to talk about you and your books. So, Mark, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got where you are today.
It depends on where I am today. My story is, it's almost cliche to me, but it's novel to other people. So when I was 27, I was homeless, living in my truck, and I was 135 pounds. In fact, somebody did a story on me, and they're doing a video, and they want pictures of back then of my story. So I just picked out the picture of when I landed in 1989 in Washington, D.C., and I was 135 pounds, and I was so skinny. My brother lived here and owned a bunch of restaurants, borrowed a bunch of money, I lived with him. He had me go to college. He had me go to the gym and got a job. And, several years later, I was married, 2 kids, and a millionaire. And the joke is I'm a short Jewish Tony Robbins. So what I found out, even though I'm an introvert, I was really, really good at sales. So I talked my way into a really great job in the tech industry, crushed it. So for a decade and a half, raising my kids and living in status symbol land, I was crushing it. The way I became a coach, though, was because there was, sometimes, I had a podcast called Mastering Midlife. And the premise of that was the drives and motivations that get you through your 20s and 30s to that success often turn on you in your 40s and 50s. And those drives and motivations are decisions you made as a child. And a lot of them come from trauma. A lot of them come from, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I was proving that I was not the homeless guy. So I was running and gunning as fast as I could. And it was internal work that needed to be done so that when I'm driving around in a Lexus convertible, when I'm in $1 million house, when I'm in status symbol land, I never felt like I belonged. So the wheels started to come off, that midlife crisis and the overwhelm and stuff happened. So I started having panic attacks. My marriage fell apart. I got really, really sick, stone cold sober. So I destroyed my life stone cold sober, in my late 40s. And what happened after that was my building myself back from being suicidal and depressed, from having destroyed my family and my career, being in the toilet. And as I built myself back, I listened to every self-help book that was known to man, every spiritual book. I journaled, I did my work, and I built myself back into a different person. When I came back as a different person, I was like an ex-smoker. I was like, you need to understand what you're doing. This agreement we made to be in the 1% that's killing your marriages, that's killing your health, that's killing, any creativity and any joy in life. It doesn't have to be that way. And when I became super successful in this different fashion, that's when I realized that what I need to do is I need to reach a hand back and I need to change the people's lives that work to the left and right of me. And that's how I became an executive coach.
That is really powerful. And I want to ask you a vulnerable question. And if you're not comfortable answering it, it's fine. We'll move to the next question. But how did you end up homeless?
Alcohol, drugs.
Really?
Alcohol, drugs, sex addiction. I just had zero skills at functioning in life. I was voted best bartender in New Haven, Connecticut. That was because I was doing cocaine in the bathroom with the person who ran the newspaper.
And a lot of people, and I talk about this at length, we're but one decision away from being homeless. And I try to be really not be judgmental of homeless people, even though, a lot of it's the mental illness and that not getting the help they need, or the alcohol and the drugs, which are really, really devastating addictions. And so I applaud you for coming out of that and then coming out of it again without the drugs. But that's pretty huge to, make your mark twice like that.
It is, and and my life is not that dramatic. Like, my life is pretty boring now. The drama I do now is swimming with sharks, and scuba diving in Turks and Caicos.
Thank you.
It's not like the up and down of craziness, right? I did my work to create a mark that's sustainable, that can thrive.
I love that. And by the way, you're crazy if you're swimming with sharks.
It's amazing.
No, I have two fears in life: sharks and alligators. So.
Yeah, alligators I won't swim with.
Yeah, they're a little less predictable. So, all right. So tell me a little bit about your executive coaching. What types of professionals are your typical target audience?
So most of my clients are in the C-suite. I have a few CEO clients of smaller companies, entrepreneurs, but most of my clients are on the executive team in larger corporations. So CIO, CFO, right? Those kinds of people. And often I'm the one who's called in when someone is super, super talented, has risen through the ranks really, really fast, and hasn't had those leadership skills and those maturity skills catch up to the level of their responsibility and the level of their impact. So my job is to help them. If they're a bull in a china closet, teach them manners. If there's someone who does the work for their people and can't let go and can't, move into that leadership piece, help them, mature in that direction. So that's the bulk of my practice.
And do you have any online courses or anything like that? Let's say like I am that person, but my company is not as forward thinking to hire a coach. Do you have other methods that people can reach your work?
Sure. So my new book is called The Rising Leader Handbook, turning fast rising high achievers into effective leaders. And I have a 12-week course of the same name. So that goes through the module, it goes through leading up. So becoming a trusted advisor to your boss, leading across, which is leading in a group of powerful peers. So how do you lead with other people who are also leaders, who also want their ideas heard, who also want to make an impact? How do you lead your team? And then how do you lead yourself? So it's 4 sections, 12 modules. It's not an online course that you can take at your own pace yet. It's something that I bring to companies, but we're going to film it and do that. But the book should be out this summer.
Oh, congratulations. I don't know that I knew you had a new book coming out.
Yeah, my book coach was just calling me today, going, "Hello, Mark. Well, you know your new book is real. I've been writing, going, how's the writing going? I'm like, it's amazing, and because I have ADHD, right? So I write what section I want, and I write this section, and I write that section. So I know the book is real, and it's about to come out when I'm agonizing over it. It's like, okay, this section, oh my God, I need to take this interview that I did over here and put this in, and this client story over here. Now I know the book's real, so it's on its way.
That is amazing. Is it available for pre-order yet?
No, but the book summary, because I was taking so long, we wrote a book summary that's coming out in about 2 weeks that people will be able to get free on my website.
Awesome.
And they can and by the way, the book that you have in front of you, Only Tens, you can get that free on my website also.
Wow. So the digital version, right?
The digital version.
That is amazing. Well, let's talk about this for just a second, because you discuss in your book, Only Tens, how a 10 represents, I want to make sure I get this right, the feeling of I want this and no one's going to stop me. And so there's numerous occasions in life where that qualify as a 10, but how do you keep a positive attitude and perseverance to succeed at what you describe as a 10?
So again, the definition of a 10 in my nomenclature. So the whole point of the book was I have ADHD. When I had an asshole sales manager, I was really successful because I like to please people. I don't like to get in trouble. So if I have someone on the phone saying, Mark, where's your sales? Where's your sales? And I have my numbers up on the board next to other people, I want to shine, right? So I crushed it in sales, mostly because of external validation. When I became a coach, I didn't realize I was becoming an entrepreneur. I had to run my own business. I was my own sales manager. My sales manager had ADHD, and my sales manager was often interested in the things that didn't grow a business. So for me, I wrote Only Tens to get a PhD in how to get things done, with ADHD. How do I focus? How do I get the right things done? And what I found, and when I wrote the book, I came up with this system that I started getting so much done. When we wrote the book, the first day, I thought my mother would buy a copy. I'd buy a copy. Actually, I'd pay for the copy for my mother. And we'd sell 2 copies. And I sold 1,500 copies the first day.
Wow.
Right? So thousands and thousands of copies of this book are out in the world, and it just blows my mind. And people are giving it to people in the C-suite, and people are giving it to, business leaders, and it's been really, really helpful. So the definition of a 10 is it has to get done today, and it has to get done today by me. It has to get done by today, and it has to get done today by me. So in other words, if it should be delegated, it's not a 10, right? If it's something that so I joke in the Mastering Overwhelm workshop, what do you have on your list that was on your list yesterday and last week and the week before?
Are you looking at my stuff?
If I don't keep it on the list, I'll forget about it. But the problem is, how important was it? So we start to whittle off the things that are on your on your list, because you can't say no, because you can't set a boundary, because you can't renegotiate time, because you're having trouble delegating, right? Because you don't want to forget. And then all of a sudden, the list gets whittled down to only a few essential things. Now, the second part of the definition of a 10 has to be done by me, has to be done by me today, is I really have juice to do it. I really want to do it. Because what I found was, when I whittled things down to the essential, all of a sudden that little voice, that intuition showed up. Call so-and-so, check on so-and-so, do this, right? And all of a sudden it made a connection, and it led to a client, and your creativity just soars when you're no longer cluttered. So the part of the definition of the 10 that you just said was, how do you know something's a 10? You did it. So you look back to see what does a 10 feel like in your body. So when I was depressed and suicidal, that second time, what I did was, I thought I was going to die. I was diagnosed, I was sick. I was really sure I was going to die. So I made the decision, if I'm going to die, I'm going to make $1 million to leave to my ex-wife and my kids. I'm also going to run the Marine Corps Marathon. I couldn't run a mile, but I heard a guy on the radio who said everybody can run. So I'm going to run the Marine Corps Marathon, so my kids see what you do when tragedy happens. And I'm going to give $60,000 to charity. How do I know those things were a 10? I did all 3. Right? So I knew I was committed, right? 99%'s a bitch, 100%'s easy, right? So I knew I was committed to those things. So I had in my body the understanding of when I'm lying to myself and when I'm telling the truth to myself. It was, I told publicly, I told people I was running the marathon. I raised money to run the marathon, right? I did all these things in public to make sure that I would do it. So I wasn't lying to myself. So the tagline in the book is, you don't have a time management problem, you have an honesty problem. We lie to people, we lie to everybody, to ourselves, what we're willing to do, what we're capable of doing, what we're going to do. And until we get honest with what we really want to do. So one of the problems with ADHD is, I just don't do what I don't want to do, and I only do what I want to do. And then what I figured out is, that's all of us. We only do what we want to do, and we don't do what we don't want to do. And then people say, but Mark, I have to do this. I have to go to work. You don't have to go to work. Yeah, I do. I'll get fired. Oh, so you want to go to work so you don't get fired. You want the paycheck. You want the benefits, right? You're not a victim of this. You're choosing it. And when we start peeling all that back, the power starts to come back, right? I'm no longer a victim of anything. My boss doesn't make me do anything. I would like to be in their good graces, so I'm choosing to do this. I'm now empowered. So the whole thing about 10s is being honest with what we want to do, what we're willing to do, what we're capable of doing, setting boundaries and having difficult conversations to get those things off our plates that we aren't willing to do or don't want to do, so that we have laser focus on the things that are really important.
Oh man, I just was totally guilting out over here as you were talking about all that, because I'm sitting here. So I have this rule, because I journal every morning, and my rule is, if I write it down, it has to get done. and I'm just going to be very vulnerable with you again. I struggle with writing workout down in my journal, and I know I need to do it, but my rule is if I write it down, I have to do it, and I just don't want to commit to it that much, And so would you call that a false 10? You talk about false 10s in your book, right?
So it's not so saying that you want to work out and not working out isn't a false 10. It's not a 10.
Okay.
It's an 8. I want to work out. I'm not committed to working out. I really, really want to work out, but I'm not committed to working out.
Right.
A false 10 is other people's priorities.
Oh.
You tend to do those things. Someone runs in and puts something on your plate and you do that instead of your work.
Yes.
That's a false 10. A false 10 is scrolling through Twitter, checking who to be mad at today.
Okay.
Dopamine hits are false 10s. Things that should be delegated that you're doing instead of your work, false 10s. You think they're 10s, you think they're important, you're really busy just not working on the things you're supposed to be working on.
Interesting. But I love what
calls it productive procrastination.
Yeah. So, but no, I love what you said about like other people trying to put things on your plate that's not your 10. That's a false 10. And that's probably why
your 10 is pleasing people.
Wow.
You want to please that person more than you want to get your stuff done.
Yeah, that would not be me, but
or like you just don't like, who doesn't want to be, like I want to be liked, or I want to be seen as all powerful. I used to tell people I'm all things to all people all the time. Why? Because I'm smart, I'm energetic, I'm capable, until I couldn't anymore. But that was my identity. So my 10 was being a victim of the world because I just did so much for everybody, right? Poor me. And my 10 was holding that persona because I never wanted to say, I just can't. Like that's, I need to not do that.
That is so hard. One of the things that I am such a big believer in, and boundaries are huge for me. And so I live by let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if I say yes to you, I will show up. God forbid something happens, right? Like the other night I missed an event because we had a big storm and my power went out. I think that's an understandable yes that didn't work out, right? But for the most part, my yes is yes and my no is no. And I've gotten really good. And I think when people get to this point where they can say no matter how many times somebody comes back and tries to bully them into that decision they don't want to make, don't say maybe, yes or no. Because if you say maybe, you give them an in to break through your boundary.
Right. I was working with a client who just before we ended our session, he said, "Oh my God, I have to go to this event tonight, and I promised them I'd help out, and I just don't want to go." And there were going to be TV cameras, and it was a national event, and he's like, "I just don't want to go, but I have to go." I'm like, "Don't go." He's like, "What do you mean? This is like I have to go." I said, "You don't have to go. If you're going to go with that attitude, don't go. If you're going to go, choose to go and show up with a freaking smile on your face and be all in." And he was like, "What? What?" And he goes, "Well, I need to go." And he called me the next day and he goes, "It was awesome." He goes, "I was going to go and be such a curmudgeon and just kind of do my thing." He goes, when you said, if you're going to go, show up with a smile. He says, my whole attitude changed and I crushed it and we had a great time and we had such impact and it was great." So right, it's either a yes or no, hell yes or hell no.
Exactly. That's such a good piece of advice. Don't show up halfway. So I'm really curious. You'd mentioned that your ADHD, and I think, we see a lot of that these days, not just in kids anymore, but, moving into adulthood. So what's one piece of advice you would give to someone that is struggling with that to help them be successful?
Read the book Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. The reason that all of us have ADHD right now, or ADD, or whatever you want to call it, is because we are dopamine addicts. And kind of like obesity, it's our responsibility, but it's not our fault. It's our responsibility to pick and choose what we eat, but it's not our fault that we get inundated on every commercial and every street and every place we go with delicious, cheap food that we're told is food and told nutrition, and that they sneak sugar in and they sneak corn syrup in and all those addictive things into the food, which is causing the obesity crisis. Again, it's our responsibility, but it's not our fault because the society is killing us. Same thing with our attention. We keep these things in our pockets that people spend billions and billions and billions of dollars to get our attention. It's a losing battle. You can't go, when was the last time you went to dinner and there wasn't a TV somewhere in the restaurant with flashing images? We go to these sports bars to eat, and I can't even have a conversation when I go to a sports bar because I'm watching every game on every single TV. So we have an attention problem. And Johan Hari wrote a brilliant book on what the problem is and some of the solutions that you could have. But it is really a losing battle. You have to turn off your phone. You have to put it in another room. You have to have digital detoxes. You have to have deep work time because we've lost the ability. When was the last time, listen to your listeners, when was the last time you read a book? When was the last time you actually read an entire book, right? My son, one of my sons, he's brilliant. He doesn't read books though. Like he reads articles. He reads people. We don't have the attention span we used to. So it's not most people's fault. It is your responsibility. If you want to get anything done, you have to push society back and decide what's important to you.
I love that you said that. And by the way, the last time I read a book was this morning. So I love to read. And something else, and I think I've not read that book that you're talking about, Stolen Focus, but I think it will go on the list for sure.
I think it's the most important book written in the last decade.
Wow, that's saying a lot. But one thing that I did as I was doing my inner work and taking responsibility, like you said, I got rid of all my TVs. I don't have a single TV in my house. And it's so freeing and I love it. I love not having a TV. So that's one thing. So I'm curious though, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a job seeker who's in the middle of a job search to help them stay motivated and confident? Because, sometimes these job searches take, some time. So what would you offer to them?
So I don't work with a lot of people who are doing job searches, but I do work with executives who are between jobs. And often they have a non-compete. So they have 6 months. They're used to being crazy busy and they have 6 months with nothing to do. So again, with a job seeker, they have a full-time job. Their full-time job is finding another job, right? And if I often talk to people who are unhappy in their job, what's your network look like, right? So have you had coffee? Have you scheduled coffee as if it's your job to have coffee? But I tell them, what's your exercise routine? What time do you get up? Like, you have to have a routine when you don't have a job to go to. You should be getting up at a specific time. You should be exercising every single day, right? You should have, if there's a hobby that you wanted to try, like one executive who was in between jobs, took cooking classes, and he found out that he loved it, right? And then he got a new job, which was 60 to 80 hours a week. But he did it, right? Like the regiment between will help you keep your energy up. It'll help you keep your self-esteem up. It'll make you interesting when you go on job interviews. Right? If you're only doing the job interview, if you're sulking and wondering what's going to happen and worrying about stuff, and you're not fit and vibrant and alive and interested in things, your job interview isn't going to be as exciting.
That is so true. And I'm a big believer in everything you just said as far as routines and regiment, even when you are working. I think that's important. So I want to hear a little bit about your podcast, the